we want to welcome you and say good morning to this official motorcade for the late Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes, the former Chief Minister of Anguilla. So we are getting into the heart of the Blowing Point area, another very popular area for the late Hubert B. Hughes, and many dedicated and ardent supporters from this area. During his political life, he was very fond of his entire district, District 6, but he was particularly fond of the people from Blowing Point. In conversations with him, he would always speak very highly and proudly of his many friends and loyal supporters in this area, Blowing Point. So ahead of us, the police vehicle, and here we are seeing some students from the Maranatha Methodist Church. Some little students here on the side of the road with their teachers, with their flags. It's very good to see the Maranatha Methodist Church and their school and the students coming out. So we proceed just past the Anguilla Gases, Blues gas station as we know it, on our left. And on our right is Benny's Supermarket. Benny, of course, a leading businessman in this area, South Blowing Point. Folks just coming out in their yards and having a peek of this official motorcade. In front of us is the Two Sons Funeral Home hearse. Funeral director there, Alistair Richardson, at the wheel. And in there, the casket of the late, bearing the body of the late Hubert Benjamin Hughes, former Chief Minister of Anguilla. So we've reached Kirtley's shop, and we'll definitely be making a brief stop here. The hearse coming up and stopping right on this spot. And this would have served as the platform, the stage for many of Mr. Hughes's political meetings. Late Kirtley Carty, his very dear friend, who passed some years ago. I can see his son just outside the shop here. And looking further across, just going further. And so the family and the organizers found it very, very important that this brief stop be made. And so we are about to move off from Hughes' Kirtley Carty's shop, and we'll be going. The motorcade will continue to the ferry terminal, and then we'll turn around heading back towards the east. And again at the junction adjacent to Boca Chica, the motorcade will make a left turn to Spanish Town and going to the head of South Hill Main Road, and then turn left onto the South Hill Main Road, traveling to the end of West End. So we've moved away from Kirtley's shop in Blowing Point, still in the Blowing Point area. And we are moving along now, along the main road, heading towards the ferry terminal. Just Just on our left, it's Ashley Supermarket Wholesale, the branch here in South Hill. You're seeing the open playing field. And as we look further ahead, we can see the outlines with some Sahara dust quite visible. We can still see the outlines of Friends and Martin. So we're heading towards the ferry terminal, very popular area, of course, for locals and tourists alike. And you understand that sometime soon there should be some work being started on the new ferry terminal. It's the official motorcade on this day, Tuesday the 14th. Tuesday the 15th of June for the late Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes, former Chief Minister of Angola. Motorcade led by the official police vehicle, then members of the Angola Cycling Club. As we come to the ferry terminal on our left, quite a bit of change has been made in this area since Hurricane Irma. And quite some more changes proposed for this area. So the hearse has just made the turn, and we will be heading back along the main road here in Blowing Point. And we can see the number of vehicles forming part of this motorcade has certainly picked up since we started just outside the funeral home, Tucson's funeral home in North Hill. So we're continuing quite slowly as the hearse now makes that turn and is back on Tucson's funeral home in North Hill. Certainly quite absent and would not be quite absent from this is the blowing of horns. Of course, this is a more solemn occasion. As the hearse now makes that had this been a political rally of the sort, you certainly would have had some of that. Someone just indicating there from the sideline, gone but not forgotten. Someone just standing on the side there. So we're going back up along the main road here in South Hill. Coming back up to just on the road passing outside of Kirtley's Carty shop. So I said we are directly behind the hearse. Ahead, the members of the biking club, motorcycle club, and in front of the motorcyclists, members of the Royal Anguilla Police Force, the car, and of course the motorcycles. So we are well on the way with this motorcade. Started at Tucson's funeral home, went out to North Hill next to the basketball court, past the primary school in South Hill, the H&T Hazel, came down deep into the Blowing Point area, going next to the ferry, stop at Kirtley's shop. Now we are made the turn, and we are going back along the main road in South Hill. And when we get to the junction adjacent to Boca Chica, the motorcade will make a turn left through Spanish Town, heading to the head of the South Hill main road. Then we'll make a left on the South Hill Main Road and travel to the end of West End. Again, it's Lloyd's Live, providing you with coverage. Those of you at work in the offices, those of you at home, and especially for the Anglican diaspora, folks overseas in the US and the UK and Canada, the US Virgin Islands, and wherever there are Anglians, no doubt getting a taste of what's happening here today. It's the official motorcade for the late Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes, the former Chief Minister of Anguilla. Immediately behind our vehicle, members of the Anguillan government, led by the Honorable Premier, Dr. Ellis Lorenzo Webster. Members of the family, the late Hubert Hughes, are also behind us in that part of the parade here today. So we're moving along. We're coming up, just approaching the Boca Chica area, and we'll be making a left turn and going through Spanish Town. Then we'll get back onto the South Hill Main Road. So the police outriders and the police vehicle and the motorcyclists, they've made the turn, and momentarily the hearse will also make that turn here, just adjacent to Boca Chica. So we're heading now into Spanish Town. The weather is quite good. Lots of clouds about, and there's some breeze, so it's not too bad out here today. So we are coming into the heart now of Spanish Town. When we get to the top of the road, the main road here, that is the South Hill Main Road, we'll be making a left, and then we'll proceed to the end of West End. This is an area the late Mr. Hughes would have represented in the Anguilla House of Assembly for all these many years. In fact, among the, if not the longest serving member of Parliament. Entered the Anguillan Parliament in 1976. But was involved in politics long before that, since the early 60s. Had his schooling in St. Kitts, learned a lot of his politics in St. Kitts, lived in England for a while, came back home and immersed himself in the politics of Anguilla. So all his life he's been in the throes of Anglican politics. Loved by many, hated by some, as is understandable. Some will love you, some will hate you. Bob Marley says that in one of his songs. But highly respected, well respected by many. Had his own unique brand of politics. But today is the day when the entire Anglican community afforded an opportunity to pay their respects. Of course, the funeral is set for this Friday, a public holiday, at the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral in the Valley, 9:30 in the morning, as we're almost making it to the top, to the head of the South Hill Main Road. We'll be making a left at the top of the road, and then we'll be proceeding right to the end of West End. So we'll be heading straight west from here. The hearse is just about getting ready to make that turn. Just out on his right is the home. On his right is his Greg's, his son's business, and just further to the east, Mr. Hughes's home. This afternoon, of course, there'll be a public tribute session right here in South Hill in the park. On our right, we've just passed it, so we are on our way, heading west to the end of West End. Mr. Hughes passed away on the 7th of May, and immediately on his passing there were tributes and condolences coming in from persons at home here in Anguilla, across the Caribbean, and indeed across the world. And tomorrow in the Anguilla House of Assembly, parliamentarians, past and present, will be afforded an opportunity in the House to pay their official respects. The body will be lying in state in the Parliament from tomorrow until Friday. So we are en route west. Lloyd's Live bringing you the coverage. And Radio Anguilla has teamed up with Lloyd's Live to provide you this live feed. So we're actually providing the audio out of this live stream. So we're heading down west, just passing the village bakehouse, and our left is the business place of Mr. Fleming, one of the leading business men here in Anguilla. So the motorcade has picked up a bit of a pace now as we head west. It's going proceeding a little quicker than when we first started from the Two Sons Funeral Home. Again, we see members of the public just pulling to the side of the road, and some taking out their phones and taking pictures of this motorcade. Yeah, just about to come up on the Dungeon Gym. That gym is owned by Mr. Hughes' son, Hayden Hughes, the MP for this area now, and the Honorable Minister of Works and Communications. So we are just approaching Dungeons Gym on our right, that green building. Behind us, the members of government, led by the Honorable Premier, Dr. Webster. All the ministers of government are out here and other senior officials. Again, the parade led by the Royal Anguilla Police Force. Then we have the members of the Motorcycle Club. And immediately behind members of the Motorcycle Club, we have the hearse bearing the body of the late Chief Minister. And then you'll find our vehicle, which is just behind the hearse. We are coming up on the medical facility of Dr. Hughes. Dr. Lowell Hughes, of course, relative. And some of his staff, Dr. Hughes' staff, are out in their uniform, all standing at ease, some bowing as a mark of respect. And there's Dr. Hughes himself in his coat. Gives us a wave, gives us a nod and a bow. So we've just passed Hughes Medical Center. Dr. Hughes, a member of the family, late Hubert Hughes, his uncle. Dr. Hughes, the son of James Freddie Hughes, who is in the motorcade, I've been told. James Freddie Hughes, I think it's 93 or thereabouts, and still going strong, still as fit as a fiddle. So we're outside the branch here of the National Commercial Bank, and again we see members of staff in their uniforms coming out, standing uprightly as a mark of respect. Some waving, some giving a courtesy bow of the head, paying their respect to the former Anguillan leader. So we are heading down now as we continue our way, winding our way along the main thoroughfare, along the main road, heading west on this, the official motorcade. And this, the 15th day of June, for the late Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes. We're just passing resorts and residences by Cuisinart. That name will soon be changed to Aurora, as we understand it, following the takeover of the new owner of that very fine resort. I understand there'll be quite some rebranding that is underway, and it will be referred to going forward as Aurora. So we're heading down west. There'll be a stop at the former West End Clinic, where we'll have some students assembled by the roadsides with their flag. So we'll be going right to the end of West End. And we'll make a turn in the vicinity of King La and travel back east. Yeah, coming up just outside the home of former MP Walcott Richardson, also very strong supporter and a good friend of the late Hubert Hughes. We're in the West End Village, just heading west. So we are doing well. Pace has certainly quickened a bit, but we're moving along quite orderly and well folks, as we go along the route, folks are coming up, coming out to the side of the road and waving and paying their respect to the former leader. Again, if you've just joined us, this is Lloyd's Live, bringing you live coverage of this island-wide motorcade for the late Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes. We started in North Hill at the Tucson's funeral home, went around the Blowing Point area, and now we are headed through Spanish Town and made a left onto the South Hill Main Road, and now we are proceeding towards the end, right to the bottom of West End. Quite noticeable a number of vehicles we've seen. Once they see the motorcade coming, they will certainly just stop, pull off the side of the road and stop, which is very good to see. It shows that people are in tune. People understand the significance of showing that respect. And more so to respect being shown to a former leader of the island. Late Hubert Hughes would have served as Anguilla's third chief minister. And the late Honorable James Ronald Webster, of course. The late Honorable Sir Emil Gums. And now we have the late Honorable Hubert Hughes, who have passed. 3 leaders have passed. Then you are still alive. We have the Honorable Osborne Fleming in the Virgin Islands in St. Croix. The Honorable Victor Franklin Banks. And now we have the Honorable Premier, Dr. Ellis Lorenzo Webster. So those have been the leaders of this wonderful island. As I said, we've lost 3 of our leaders. Father of the nation, late Honorable James Ronald Webster. We've also lost the late Honorable Sir Emil Gums, and now the late Hubert Benjamin Hughes. So we are deep in the west, as we say. We're heading all the way to the foot of West End. This official motorcade. And what's turning out to be a very nice day. The breeze is continuing quite refreshingly so with us here today. Members of the public will get an opportunity this afternoon in South Hill to verbalize their tributes just outside the home of the fallen leader in South Hill in the park, just a stone's throw away from the house of the late Hubert Hughes. That'll be on this afternoon from about 4:30 until 7. Tomorrow, the Anguilla Parliament will be in session. Special session called, which will afford MPs, past and present, the opportunity to pay their respects. That will be tomorrow morning from, I think, 9 o'clock. The body will be lying in state from tomorrow in the House of Parliament, and members of the public will be given an opportunity to go in an orderly manner. Of course, always be very mindful of the COVID-19 pandemic. But members of the public will be given that opportunity from tomorrow, Wednesday, until Friday, when we'll have the funeral and then the final interment at the Bethel Methodist Church in South Hill. That's where the body will be interred. So we are coming up on the Best Buy supermarket here in West End. To our right as we proceed west along the main road. And again, we see workers at the Best Buy supermarket in West End coming out, decked in their masks, coming out to the side of the road, coming to the front of their business place, standing at attention and paying their last respects. So we've just passed Best Buy and we're heading further into the West Country, as I like to say sometimes. As we continue. We're coming up former West End Clinic. We're seeing some students here from the Alvin Allison Primary School out. Yes, they are. Their pink and gray uniform, teachers, Alvin Allison Richardson Primary School. And they're in fact singing the national song. This is a first. So these students are certainly singing the Anguilla national song. Very proud. Anguillans are known throughout the world as very proud people who fiercely love their country and defend their country, defend the island to the hilt. And who can blame them? You ought to. Very nice little island, nestled in the northeastern part of the Caribbean, with St. Martin on one side and the Virgin Islands on the other, and Puerto Rico. So it's in a very strategically placed area. Blessed with wonderful people and great food. Some of the finest cuisine you can find anywhere in the world. You'll get it here in Anguilla. We are continuing with this official motorcade for the late former Chief Minister of Anguilla, Hubert Benjamin Hughes of South Hill. His body is in a casket just in front of us in the Two Sons Funeral Home's hearse. Winding its way along the main road in the western area. We are doing and covering the entire island today. We'll be going right through the island. Here we are coming up on another wonderful facility, one of the best in the Caribbean. Four Seasons Resort. We are seeing some of the employees coming out and standing at attention and making that curtsy bow as the hearse and the rest of the motorcade passes by. So we'll be going to the end of West End, and then the motorcade will proceed through Meads Bay, up through Long Bay Village. We'll be having a stop in the vicinity of Iwasi. And this is another area where Mr. Hughes held many of his political meetings. So we'll be making a stop in the vicinity of Iwasi. Another area where Mr. Hughes held many of his political meetings, representing District number 6 in the Anguilla House of Assembly. We continue to let you know it's a fine day. It's not too hot, at least not yet. The late Hubert Benjamin Hughes was born on the 15th of October 1933, and he passed away on the 7th of May 2021 at the age of 87. He's made his mark. He made his entrance in party politics in 1961 when he contested his first election. In 1961, unsuccessfully, as Anguilla's representative in the Legislative Council of St. Kitts. And he was just 28 years old when he did so. Made his entrance into the Anguilla House of Assembly in 1976. And continued to represent there, except for one defeat which he suffered in 1981 against Maurice Connor. He's been in that house all that time, and he's been there. He served a number of years in the opposition, many of them solo, but he was never afraid to stand up for what he believed in. He was forthright, he was fierce. He was hostile when he needed to. He was calm and gentle when he needed to. And I'm sure you'll be hearing lots more of that during the tributes and other pronouncements in the next few days. So we've made the turn here in West End. And we'll be going. So the hearse is just making the turn here in West End. Outside the West End Vacation Rentals, we've made the turn right here, made that loop back. Just allowing for the hearse to turn, and behind me I can see the Mrs. Hughes is in the vehicle just behind us. Here in our vehicle, we are right behind the hearse, and then behind Mrs. Hughes's vehicle, the ministers of government, all the ministers of government and the parliamentary secretary, they're there, and other dignitaries. Then there are other people who are there as well. The motorcade has, in terms of the participants, has certainly grown since we started early this morning. As we are going back along that West End Road, we're heading up. So we've made the turn around and we're heading back out from the foot of West End. Here. District number 7. His former colleague and friend, the late Belter Hughes, represented this area, and Belter Hughes was also a member of Mr. Hughes's party at one time. So folks are still coming out on the side of the road. A number of Caribbean officials have also paid their respects to Mr. Hughes, and some will continue to do so in some special programs coming up between today and Friday. Among the persons who certainly will be speaking is Brother James Freddie Hughes, who will be coming out and telling the world about his brother, his upbringing, his life as a boy, growing up together in business, running their boats as skippers and partners. All of that will be told. Mr. Hughes' time in the UK, spent there, coming back home, getting involved in active politics at home and representing the people of Anguilla. As I said, the late Hubert Hughes never wanted to shy away from a discussion. He was always engaging, and he told you exactly what was on his mind. He was a fearless type of individual. He could be quite vicious in some of his commentaries, but at the end of the day, he was a gentle giant. Never held any malice or ill will. He will curse you in this minute, and in the next minute he'll be the one coming and shaking your hands and patting you on the back or your head with a smile, of course, and a little chuckle. That was the man, Hubert Hughes. But he stood unapologetically for what he believed in. He was quite knowledgeable, although not with any superior education. Was very knowledgeable, and he said he gained that education from reading. He read widely, and encouraged his children to also read widely. Bought them, he said, in several interviews I would have done with him, bought his sons books and encyclopedias and encouraged them to read. He was a good listener as well, listened almost every day to the BBC World News. He was a great student of history, particularly African and Caribbean history. He was quite astute. He could repeat for you the names of the African leaders, just reel them off the top of his head, and knew them pretty well. Kenyatta, Jomo Kenyatta, and those names. Late Nelson Mandela. He would tell you a lot of history about Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia as it was then, and the white enslavement of the African people there. He was anti-colonial in his stance, had many run-ins with the British. He always said that he would love to see Anguilla being an independent country. But unfortunately, he is passed on now. But that is still the dream of the people of Anguilla. One day, they too will be an independent nation. But Hubert Hughes was always spoke about independence. He was always felt that Anguilla should be a truly independent nation, running its own ship, paddling its own canoe, and not depending on the handouts, as he would say in some occasions, from anyone, including the British government. Always wanted Anguillans to have their own, and have their own this and owning everything, and taking care of themselves without having to rely on anything from anybody, British or otherwise. So we are here outside the Anguilla Arts and Crafts Center, the daycare center, outside the Agnes Agatha Richardson Clinic, and of course the Alvin Allison Primary School. Students are here with their flags and their teachers on both sides of the road as the hearse proceeds very slowly past the students. To our right, the burying ground here in West End, as we look ahead towards the Meads Bay area. So the motorcade will be proceeding now through the Meads Bay area, up through Long Bay. And as I indicated earlier, a stop will be made in the vicinity of Iwasi. And many of Mr. Hughes' political meetings were held next to Iwasi's place there in the area. After we've gone through that Meads Bay area, we'll proceed to the Long Bay stop. Long Bay stoplight. Then we'll make a left up to South Hill onto the Hubert Benjamin Drive. We'll stop at Mr. Hughes' residence for a few minutes, then head up into the water swamp, South Hill water swamp area. We'll be making a left down to Sandy Ground, through the pond and back up and travel to water swamp, George Hill Road. A stop will be made in the vicinity of the tire shop. So now we are making that left, coming from the primary school, Albert Allinson Primary School, along the John Hodge Road, as we head into Meads Bay. This is certainly an area, part of the hospitality belt. Number of villas and resorts in this area. Number of folks ply their trade and make their living from working in this area. So it's a very critical area for Anguilla. As we head into this area, we're in Meads Bay as we continue here with the island-wide motorcade for the late Hubert Benjamin Hughes, Honorable former Chief Minister of Anguilla. So Hughes contested every election since 1976 up until he bowed out in 2015. So he would have contested every election in that period from 1976. So Hughes did not run for re-election in 2015. Was Chief Minister from March 1994 to 99. Then he had a stint again in 2000, short one. And then he came back in from 2010 to 2015, so you would have had 3 bites of the cherry as leader of Anguilla, as the Chief Minister, with his Anguilla United Movement political party. So we're in the Meads Bay area. Again, we are bringing you live coverage, Lloyd's Live, on the streets of Anguilla, as the nation mourns and pays tribute to its fallen former Chief Minister, Hubert Benjamin Hughes, who will be laid to rest this coming Friday, as we are outside here in the heart of the hospitality belt. Some of the workers at Karimar proudly displaying the Anguilla flag and paying their respect. That is so good to see. We've seen that throughout this motorcade. School children, ordinary Anguillians, men and women alike, coming out, standing at attention, making the courtesy bow as a mark of respect to the former leader. Mr. Hughes, since he bowed out of active politics, spent time at home before his ailment. You could meet him on his veranda, spent quite a bit of time on his veranda, entertained many on his veranda, talking politics, talking life. He was always engaging, always up to date with what was happening, not only in Anguilla, but the region and the rest of the world. He spent a lot of time following the news. He was very keen on the news, and particularly the BBC News. If he could not hear the BBC News, especially in the night, because he goes to bed, he told me, with his radio stuck on Radio Anguilla and the BBC News, he would go to sleep with that. He will wake up in the morning and he would have to catch the 7 o'clock BBC News. So he was always in touch. He knew what was happening. He was well informed. And I recall a few times at Radio Anguilla, we could not bring the BBC for whatever reason. We might have had some problems on our receiver, and we couldn't get to relay the BBC News at night. And he would call religiously every day. He would call on the phone. This is Hubert Hughes. What's happening to the BBC? When are you guys going to get the BBC News back up? And we would tell him we are working on it. And he said, please do, because I don't miss the BBC News. So once that BBC was down, he would be one of the first individuals who would be calling. He was always a strong listener, listen to the BBC News. And once the BBC News was up, he was okay. But that was the man for you. Very common, simple guy who entertained just about any and everyone. Was never too busy to at least give you an ear. He may not have agreed with some of the things you would tell him, and he would let you know that I beg to disagree. But and if you made sense, he would, if you could convince him, he would listen. But he always had a point of view. He was never one who straddled the fence. He would tell you, you would know up front. He was very outspoken, very forthright in his manner. We're in the Meads Bay area heading towards Long Bay, and we'll be making a stop in the vicinity here of Iwasi. And this was another area where he held some of his political meetings, so the folks here will be very familiar. Indeed, all of Anguilla. Hubert Hughes is a household name, not only in Anguilla, but as I said, in the rest of the Caribbean as well. Since his passing, we've had a number of comments from all the Caribbean leaders, from the CARICOM Secretariat based in Guyana. We've had comments from persons out of the UK who've all, some of my own friends who've heard about his passing have said that, he's certainly left a mark. And I can tell you that the people of Montserrat, my home country, they're very proud of Hubert Hughes. Following our volcanic eruption, and persons were displaced. Hubert Hughes was in government at the time. He was the leader, and he openly extended an arm of welcome to Montserratians who were fleeing the volcano, the Soufrière Hills volcano, and many Montserratians came here, and he went to Parliament and made some special legislation allowing Montserratians to stay in Anguilla, affording them the opportunity to work and to live. And so many people in Montserrat remember him very fondly. In fact, when he goes to Montserrat, he's given almost the same status as the leader of Montserrat. So he's very, very popular in Montserrat, and Hubert Hughes took on the British government at the time of the volcano, and the British government were a little slow in getting aid into Montserrat, and he took them on personally on many radio shows, and he spoke on many radio interviews and lambasted the British government. And in fact, many in Montserrat said that Hubert Hughes could rightfully be the chief minister of Montserrat at the time, as he was talking more fiercely and appealing to the British to do more for Montserrat than even the local leaders in Montserrat. So there's a great reverence and respect for Hubert Hughes in my home country, Montserrat. And I would dare say that if it were not for the COVID pandemic, I'm sure a number of Montserratians would have come in for his funeral. So I take the liberty, speaking on behalf of all Montserratians here in Anguilla, and certainly the ones back home in Montserrat, of paying our respects to the late Hubert Hughes and his family, and certainly mourning his passing as well. So we are heading out to the Long Bay, heading through the Long Bay village, and we'll be coming to the Long Bay stop at the stoplight, and then we'll make a left back up on the South Hill Road, and we'll proceed right through on. That's Hubert Benjamin Hughes Drive. So that's his drive. That was given to him by the new administration when they came in at a ceremony there right at the stoplight there in South Hill. He was present, and his wife and his family. He spoke there briefly at the time, and that road is now known as the Hubert Benjamin Hughes Drive. So we are here, and we're making that left turn. We've just come out of the Long Bay area, and we're back onto the main road, the Hubert Benjamin Hughes Drive. We'll be making a stop at Mr. Hughes' residence for a few minutes, and then head up into the water swamp area. We'll be going into the sandy ground area as well, turning a left there around the pond and back to the roundabout, and then going through water swamp, George Hill Main Road, and proceeding to the vicinity of the tire shop. And the tire shop, again, another important landmark in the political life of the former chief minister, the late former chief minister. There was a number of political meetings of his political party were held at the tire shop. In fact, Mr. Hughes's grand finale on the political landscape as a political leader was done right there at that tire shop before the 2015 general election. And he had a rousing speech on that night right at the tire shop. He's had made many speeches there, and that has been like the base for his political party. And we've also seen that with the party that has come out from the AUM political party, the new party rebranded by Dr. Webster. So we're back in the South Hill area now, passing the Hughes Medical Center, coming up to the Hughes Medical Center, and the workers are still there, many of them. So the hearse slows down a bit here just to take in, and the hearse has gone a little closer to the folks. So they're there with their flags, some of them with the Anguilla. Seen a lot of one or two nationals from Southeast Asia who are employees with the Hughes Medical Center. They're here. They're bowing as a mark of respect, standing quite upright. One or two waves. But this is certainly very, very good. And there, Dr. Hughes, Dr. Rona is there as well. a surgeon, and Dr. Lowell Hughes there as well, coming out to pay his respects with his staff at the Hughes Medical Center as we continue. So we'll be making the next stop will be just outside the residence of Mr. Hughes for a few minutes. And then we'll continue into the South Hill area, going down towards sandy ground around the pond, going through Water Swamp, George Hill. And at the roundabout there next to the airport, we'll make a right. We'll go in towards the airport. We'll be in that area as well. We'll drive by the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport, coming back out, coming through the area, going along the Queen Elizabeth Highway, heading out towards the UWI Center, and then we'll go into the Stony Ground area. So we continue with Lloyd's Live, full and comprehensive coverage of this official motorcade. As I the police motorbikes, outriders there as well, members of the biking club here in Anguilla, hearse just ahead of us in our vehicle, and behind us Mrs. Hughes, the wife of the late Hubert Hughes, and other family members. And then behind Mrs. Hughes' vehicle we have the Honorable Premier and other ministers of government and other senior government officials, and then members of the public bringing up the rear of this parade. So we're back in the South Hill area now, coming up shortly towards business place of Walton Fleming on our right as we proceed eastwards. Just passing the Anguilla Tourism Hotel and Tourism Association office, Calypso Charters office. We're just passing that now, coming up to Mr. Walton Fleming's building here in South Hill. So the procession moving along at a good click. The weather is still holding quite nicely, a refreshing breeze, white puffy clouds, tinge of Sahara dust in the air, in the atmosphere, particularly so towards our right, overlooking the mountains of Friendston Martin. As we come up now, nearing the Seventh Adventist Church in South Hill. Again, we see ordinary Anguillians coming to the side of the road and having a look. Vehicles passing by, many of them stopping when the hearse is passing, is going by. Again, a sign, a mark of respect. We're inching ever so closely to the residence of Mr. Hughes. We are not too far away from it now. Another minute or two will be right outside his residence here in South Hill. You can see ahead of us the police vehicle and the members of the biking club. And they're beginning to slow a bit now as we come within view of his son's business, Greg's business place, orange, unmistakable orange building. And then just further east of Greg's business place is the residence of the late former Chief Minister Hubert Hughes. So we just outside Greg's Trucking and Heavy Equipment, orange and white colored building, in the back and in the front and to the back, with all his vehicles, his dump trucks and other heavy equipment. And now we come up just in front of the residence of the former Chief Minister Hubert Hughes. The hearse is parked on the outside of the gate. The funeral director, Alistair Richardson, comes out of the vehicle, makes a courtesy bow. As a matter of fact, he's now opening the hearse, and there we can, for the first time, see a glance of the casket. Brown with gold trimming at the top of the casket, bearing the body of the late former Chief Minister of Montserrat, Hubert Benjamin Hughes. Funeral director stands at attention, and he brings the casket partially out. Here we see someone just kneeling just outside the casket, kneeling and saluting. Funeral director just moves away as the casket is visible from our vantage point here in our vehicle behind the hearse. Our driver is just alighting just to get a foot stretch. We're hearing a rendition of the national song being played. Funeral director Alistair Richardson, in a slow march, goes up, pushes a button, and the hearse on its slider will slide back into the hearse. So it came out partially, just a small bit. About a quarter of it became visible. So the funeral director, Alistair Richardson, Two Sons Funeral Home, nice, neat, slow march, slowly closes the back door of the hearse. Again, he slow marches around his vehicle, the hearse, and he will get back into the hearse at this time, and the motorcade will proceed. So we're outside the green, yellow, and white, very brilliantly painted and highly visible home of the late Hubert Hughes, decked in chairs and his famous table. And those white chairs were where he spent many a day following his exit from politics, with just his shorts, no shirt on. He was familiar for that. And he would be there entertaining whoever came by to talk politics and talk about just about anything. And also to eat and to drink and to break bread, as he liked to say. So we are moving on from his residence. So we spent a few minutes here, Mr. Hughes, as we are just going past his official residence now here in South Hill. And so we are back in, our driver is back, and we are moving along again. Again, we see people in the area in South Hill coming out, standing tall and proud, waving, giving the courtesy bow, just looking on as the hearse and the rest of the motorcade passes by. Vehicles stopping as the hearse goes by. Again, another mark of respect. Hubert Hughes, a highly popular, if controversial, politician. But make no mistake, the people who supported him to the hilt. He did nothing wrong for them, for those individuals. And those are many. Even when he decided to call it quits on his political career, many persons would still flock to his house to visit him and to talk to him and to pick his brain. And we are on the Hubert Benjamin Hughes Drive. Right at the stoplight, there's a sign there on your left, just beyond Mingo's supermarket here in South Hill. We will show you the sign that bears his name. This is his drive. Hubert Benjamin Hughes Drive is just about to come into our view shortly, right at the stoplight. It's on the left if you're coming from the west. I'm sure Lloyd will pick it up. There it is, the Hubert Benjamin Hughes Drive. So we've gone past the Hubert Benjamin Hughes Drive. We're just coming up towards the Atlantic Star Medical Center, and we'll be going past where Hughes remains will be interred, the Bethel Methodist Church here in South Hill, on Friday afternoon. We'll be heading into the sandy ground area around the pond before we come back up on the main and going through Water Swamp along the George Hill Main Road. Coming to the airport roundabout, we'll be making a right. We'll be passing just outside the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport. Members of the Atlantic Star Medical Facility just coming out and waving. Employees there, workers there. It's coming up on the corner at the Eves Oven here in South Hill. So once we've come out of the sandy ground area and we get to the airport Walbeck roundabout, we'll be making a right to the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport, driving to the airport, making a left at the head of the road, and then left to Freedom Park. We'll be having a stop at Freedom Park because Freedom Park is also important. It's also important that the history, when the annals of history are recalled, and the record is made, that that will reflect that Freedom Park meant a lot to the late Hubert Hughes. In fact, Mr. Hughes was the one who insisted that that area be named Freedom Park. And this was due to the fact that the Revolutionary warriors blocked the airstrip from planes landing during the Revolution period. And Mr. Hughes always insisted that that area be named Freedom Park. So that too is another significant bit that we would certainly highlight for you as we get closer to that area. We've passed the Methodist Church and its burial ground where the body of the late Hubert Hughes will be interred on Friday as we go through the South Hill area. Moving along quite well. So far, so good. No accidents or incidents. It's been, motorcade has flowed quite nicely. No hiccups since we started earlier this morning, just after 9:30. The Two Sons Funeral Home in North Hill. This is Lights Live, in association with Radio Anguilla, providing you with live coverage of the official motorcade to honor the passing of the late Hubert Benjamin Hughes. Certainly hope that you're hearing us loudly and clearly, and that our video is streaming quite well for you, as we welcome all our viewers and listeners, especially Anguillians in the diaspora, Anguillians in Slough, Anguillians in New Jersey, New York, Miami, in Canada. We certainly want to welcome you, and we hope that you will stay with us. You can stay with us throughout the entire broadcast. It's still not finished. Later on today, we'll be having a special on Radio Anguilla right after the motorcade. Number of former Anguillan politicians and persons close to the late Hubert Hughes will be engaged in a round table looking at the man and his politics, a reflection on his life. So, and also later on this afternoon as well, the public will be given an opportunity to, in South Hill, just outside his house, in the area there, the park, to verbalize, talk about the man, giving your own tribute to him. So that will be done this afternoon in South Hill. Tomorrow, of course, the Parliament special session, when parliamentarians past and present will be afforded the opportunity to speak, pay their respects. As we make the turn here at the roundabout, and we'll be going into the sandy ground area. So just so the hearse makes a turn now as we go down into the sandy ground area. We'll be going around the pond, and then we'll come right back to the roundabout at the top of the hill here in South Hill, and then proceed along Water Swamp, George Hill, right out to the airport roundabout. So we are making that descent down the incline here in the sandy ground area, making a turn around the pond and get back out. The body, the late former leader, will be lying in state as of tomorrow, Wednesday, until Friday. On Friday, the official funeral ceremony with tributes starting around 9:30, and the official service starts at 11 o'clock at the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral in the valley. Quite a bit of planning has gone into these various events to mark the period of mourning, official mourning, led by P.S. Chanel Petty Barrett. She has been the lead person with all the preparations for these various activities. Mrs. Petty Barrett and her team, other members of government. So we're in sandy ground as we continue along the road here, going around the pond, famous Anguilla salt pond. Of course, mining of salt has played such a big part in the lives of Anguillians over these many years, and this pond, so many stories to be told, so many people who worked, toiled day and night And this pond at one time, Anguilla was a leading exporter of salt. And this is where it all, most of it, or if not all, as I understand it, came from this very same salt pond. So there's a lot of history boiled up, binded up in this. Again, seeing persons just stopping as the hearse passes by, they would stop. They're in the vehicle, they pull to the side, pull off the road, and they stop. Again, very good to see, very respectful. As we motor along around the pond, slowly proceeding. Police vehicle out front. Members of the Bikers Club behind. Police outriders on their motorbikes as well. A hearse just in front of us. Our vehicle right behind the hearse. Then behind of us is the dear wife of the former leader, Mrs. Norma Hughes, and other members of the family. They're in that vehicle. And then behind that we have the Premier, Honorable Premier Dr. Webster, other ministers of government in their official vehicles. Again, this is Lloyd Life, and we're in the sandy ground area now, going around the salt pond as the breeze continues to be with us. So it's been quite refreshing. It's not too hot. We've had this steady breeze all morning, which is making life quite nice for those of us out here as we continue to provide you with live coverage. Solemn occasion always is when someone passes away, and also more so when a leader of any island or country passes. They are normally afforded this type of courtesy. The late Hubert Hughes, who most of his life spent in politics, entered politics at the age of 28 when he ran unsuccessfully in 1961. Trying to represent Anguilla when everything was ran out of St. Kitts. He was unsuccessful, but he was not deterred. He continued in politics, and in 1976 he entered the hallowed confines, the hallowed halls of the Anguilla House of Assembly, and he remained in that august body, an institution, a House of Assembly, until 2015, when he decided to pack his bags. Said he had enough. He was getting up in age. There were some persons who felt he should have and could have continued for another, but he decided on his own terms and in his own time that the time was up. And so he decided to pack it in 2015. Went into private life, hardly made any comments on radio, except for one or two occasions he would have spoken on radio, national radio, but spent those times with his family. As he said, he wanted to spend more time with his family. He's been away, taken up, his life consumed by politics for all these many years, and spending quite a bit of time away from his family, and felt that after he'd said goodbye to politics, active politics in 2015, that he wanted to spend more time with his wife and his family and his grandchildren in particular. I remember him telling me that now is the time he'd like to spend with his grandchildren, teaching them all sorts of different things and telling them about life, telling them about his own history and what he'd done and so on, and preparing them to face the awesome challenges now confronting us today. Late Hubert Hughes, very shrewd politician, understood politics extremely well, knew when to fight and also knew when to back down. But he will always make the case. Sometimes he would be cross. Sometimes, many times, it would be less than diplomatic. But he would make the case. There are some persons who never quite understood his politics. There are many persons now, even today, who seem to have a better appreciation and understanding of his politics and many of the things that he had aspired and wanted to do for his island. As I said, he waged a vicious and vitriolic war, if you like, against the British government. He was always on their backs. He always spoke out about colonialism, always spoke about independence, always spoke about Caribbean unity and integration. And he just wanted his island to be the best. He wanted everything that was good for Anguilla and its people. He was fiercely independent in whatever he did. If it meant standing up all by himself, he would do that. And he's done that. I was told that at one time he spoke in Parliament for a number of days, I think about 3 days or something like that. He spoke in Parliament. And he was a natural. He was never one who relied on script, spoke from his head. Even when his advisors and technocrats gave him scripts, he would put it aside. He was not comfortable with scripts at all. He spoke from his head as he saw it. That was Hubert Hughes. He was best unscripted. You give him a script and he was trip. He'll be totally at sea. But if you tell him, look, just go up and speak. Speak from your heart. And that is what he did. As we are coming around, we've gone around the salt pond. We are coming next to the Sandy Ground Cemetery and the Sandy Ground ball field. Then we'll be heading back up east, back up to the roundabout, and we'll proceed into Water Swamp, George Hill. We'll be making a stop at the tire shop where Mr. Hughes made his had his grand finale, made his final speech, political speech at the tire shop, and has made many of his political meetings were held there. In fact, the campaigns that he ran normally would kick off at the tire shop. That would be a stomping ground for him, where many of his supporters would gather for political meetings. But the late Hubert Hughes has done quite a bit for his country in his own way and in his time. And it's good to see that he's being accorded the type of respect that he deserves. Mark you, there are many who would not agree with many of the things he would have done in the past, and they would have told him so. Even persons he started out with in politics would not have agreed and had several disagreements, bitter ones, in and out of Parliament. Was involved in some court issues and legal issues and so on and so forth. But he continued. He was like the evergreen. When you think he's out, he just comes back. That was the type of man he is. He loved people. I know many of the persons who worked with him in his office when he was leader of government business and head of country. A number of the secretaries and other persons, many of whom I've spoken to, I've said that he always treated them well. He was always respectful. He would come to the office, and when he comes in, he would say, "Good morning, everyone." So they have very high regard. Many of the persons who worked with him have very high regard for him. Like I said, the late former chief minister was no saint, and none of us are. He had his faults, had his shortcomings, just like all of us. But he always stood for what he thought was right, was just, and he always stood for the people of Anguilla. He represented Anguilla. That was foremost on his mind. We're in the water swamp area now. We've just gone past the Jumbo Plaza as we head east, heading on to the George Hill main road as we continue along here. So our next stop, we'll be making a brief stop. We'll be at the tire shop in George Hill. As I indicated, that is where Mr. Hughes made his grand finale political meeting the day before the 2015 general election. We're coming past the old shopping mall here in the Water Swamp area. Self-Defense Academy to our left, Tomac Plaza. On our right, coming up, will be the Ray's Funeral Home. What the building that once housed, well, still or is about to release the community college. I think they're moving into their new facility shortly. That building owned by the late Bob Rogers, a revolutionary, another outstanding Anguillian figure. So we have just gone through the stoplight on the George Hill main road. So we're coming up momentarily, and we'll be making a brief stop at the tire shop. Very important landmark, important area for the late Honorable Chief Minister Hubert Hughes. Held many of his political meetings here at the tire shop. In fact, former Minister Evan Gums and his brothers who have the business here, Evan Gums speaks very highly of Mr. Hughes, pays him great courtesy and respect, as we make a little loop here as a mark of respect. So we're making a minute stop here in front of the tire shop. Some of the workers there coming out. His final political statement on a political platform was made here at the tire shop in George Hill. Some folks are coming out, standing and taking with their cell phones out, as is customary these days, and taking snapshots of this, the official motorcade for the late Hubert Benjamin Hughes. This is Lloyd's Life in association with Radio Anguilla, moving through the island as the people of Anguilla pay their respects to the fallen leader. We are about to move on again along the George Hill main road. Police vehicle leading the motorcade, followed by the members of the motorbike club. Hearse just behind them. We're right behind the hearse. And the family, led by the wife of the late Hubert Hughes, Mrs. Norma Hughes, and other family members in the vehicle immediately behind us. String of vehicles. Some pulling off and so far the traffic has been managed fairly well. Seen one or two little close shaves here and there, but nothing untoward. We're coming up to the stoplight now on the George Hill Main Road and looking at that piece of road that has just come into play here. That takes, if you're going into the Long Ground area, that the Jeremiah Gums Highway, that piece of road that was put in recently to take you off on the left. We're just passing that area, marked in yellow, and as we go past there. So we're coming up to Anthea's Bakery on our right, and as we look further across to our right, we can see the airstrip for the Clayton Lloyd International Airport. So at the Walbeck roundabout, we'll be making a right turn to the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport. We'll be driving through the airport and we'll make a left at the head of the road and then left to Freedom Park. We'll pause or stop a minute at Freedom Park. As I indicated earlier, Mr. Hughes always insisted that this area, Freedom Park, that the area there, that's adjacent to the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport, be named Freedom Park. And this was in memory and as a mark of respect for the Revolutionary warriors who blocked the airstrip from planes landing during the Revolution period. And the late Hubert Hughes always insisted that that area be named Freedom Park, and so hence it's gotten that name. In fact, one or two political meetings I know have been held there. Other activities have been held there. I've seen in recent times it's been used by some youngsters to play football, to play soccer. Again, we see folks just pulling off the road and giving way to the procession. So we are right at the Walbeck roundabout, just approaching it now momentarily. And we are about to make the right turn. And we'll be driving through the airport in front of the airport building. So we have now made that turn, the airport roundabout, looking at the number of palm trees lining both sides of this particular strip of road. And there's the sign of the CJL, Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport, and police vehicle has now made that right, going to the front of the airport. Airport parking lot, fairly well populated, as the hearse makes that very slow turn. Easy does it, as we say. And we're going. We see the new fire and rescue service and the air traffic buildings on our right. And in front of us, the main airport facility. One or two small aircrafts on the tarmac in view in front of us as we go slowly through this area. Already we see some of the airport staff and other persons who work at the airport are coming out right in front of the drop-off and departure area. As the hearse comes to almost a slow stop. Driving right through the area. Some folks are saluting. Among them, one of Radio Angular's announcers, Renford Kelsick, who is standing at attention and saluting as the hearse goes by. Number of the airport workers coming out to the front, standing at attention, waving and paying their last respect. Hearse taking its time in this area, going quite slowly in front of the airport. Two officers of the Immigration and Customs Department saluting, standing at attention, giving their salute. So the hearse is going quite slowly in this area. The bikers and the official police vehicle are right at the top of the road. We see some members of the Customs Department, with at least one member with a flag, outside the depot, the area where you go to pick up packages at the airport here, coming right up to the fence with the Anguilla flag waving proudly with the mask on in this COVID-19 pandemic, standing at attention. So Freedom Park. There'll be a stop here for a minute. As this park has particular significance. Was of particular significance for the late Chief Minister. He insisted that it be named Freedom Park. The procession will continue. As we go back to the airport roundabout, we'll be heading down in the main road in the center of the business and center of commerce here in Anguilla. Valley Main Road, right through the center of the government and business area. Procession, as I said, will continue. Once we get to the airport roundabout, we'll make a right. And now we see the hearse driving onto Freedom Park. As I indicated, this is significant, as Mr. Hughes always insisted that this particular area, nice open area, what many consider to be one of the really nice green spaces here in the Valley area, be named Freedom Park, and so it's been called that. So we're taking some time. The hearse has stopped. Everyone else has stopped. We've stopped as well. Hearse is proceeding, and we proceed once again. So we are taking our cue from the hearse. Hearse is making a nice little loop in Freedom Park with the airport parking lot off to our left, the tower and the Fire and Rescue Services building there as well. Looking at the famous grape tree, looking at the palms over on that main road on either side of the road. Vehicles streaming in behind us. Members of government in their official vehicles are here today. Other members of the Anguillan community, supporters and well-wishers, paying their respect to the late former Chief Minister of Anguilla, Hubert Benjamin Hughes. Hearse slowly makes that turn again, left turn out of Freedom Park onto the main road as we head towards the airport roundabout. Then we'll make a right and come down into the center of the city. Procession will continue going down to the St. Mary's Cathedral Anglican Church. A stop will be made where the students from the Valley Primary School would come to the roadside with their flags, will be at the roadside with their flags. From that area, procession will drive through the Queen Elizabeth Avenue, making a stop at the University Center, where the students of the Albina Lake Hodge Campus B will be assembled. Then the procession will proceed to the Aurelia Kelly Primary School, and a stop will be made near that school, where the students will be lined up with their flags. So we've made the turn. The hearse is just turning now at the airport roundabout as we go down into the main thoroughfare, the main area in the valley. This takes us right through the center of the business and commerce sector and even governmental sector here in Anguilla. Stream of vehicles coming towards us, going in a southerly direction. One or two have just given way, either by stopping or just pulling wide. So here we are in the center. Lloyd's Live in association with Radio Anguilla, providing you with live coverage of the official motorcade. Mark of respect, and seeing some government workers who have taken some time out from the offices to come to the side of the road as we approach the post office on our right here in the valley. To our left, commercial center, just outside the Anguilla Lottery. Some of the workers there coming outside as well, some displaying their flags. Some of the postal workers, persons doing business at the post office, have come outside. One to the front area of the post office, as the hearse, led by funeral director Alistair Richardson, bearing the body of the late Chief Minister of Anguilla, late former Chief Minister of Anguilla, Hughes. We're going through here very slowly. On our right, the James Ronald Webster Building, Anguilla Social Security Board Building, as we're in the heart of the valley, heart of the center of commerce and government and business sector here in the valley. Keynes Enterprises on our left, on our right, the Flow headquarters, some folks coming out from the Flow headquarters, coming closer to the road to get a peep. We're seeing the workers from Flow in their blue, light blue and dark blue uniforms, including the manager, with flags of Anguilla in hand, standing at attention, pretty upright and looking quite stoic. No big smiles, just rather stone-faced, very serious, as the hearse and the rest of the motorcade passes by. Seeing the folks from Pink Mako, local video production, audio production company, coming out as well in their uniforms, coming right up. We're outside the National Commercial Bank building, former CCB building here in the valley, and I'm seeing at least one worker from that the bank, at least getting a chance to come outside in uniform, of course, coming outside. Seeing ordinary Anguillians coming to the side of the road and having a peep standing at attention as we get closer to the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral, and we are seeing now a fairly large contingent of students from the Valley Primary School, yellow and brown uniform, waving and singing the national song. As the hearse with the body of the late former Chief Minister passes by. Students looking good and must be commended. It's quite warm, but they don't mind that. They want to come out with their flags, all decked out, and as I can see here, with their mask. Of course, we're in the COVID pandemic environment, still no vaccines for children, so this is very important that they continue to be masked, and they are doing just that, singing and waving quite energetically their flags and singing the national song. The hearse has slowed considerably, just going at pedestrian pace. On either side of the street here, right along the main boulevard here in the valley, going right down to the tamarind tree next to the health center there. Students with their flags, and they're singing, they're waving, teachers with them, they have their flags, they're muttering little things as the hearse slowly drives by. Seeing the principal of the Valley Primary School, Mr. Skellicky, proudly waving his Anguilla flag, leading the pack, leading from the front. He's the head of that school. As we go past the famous tamarind tree just outside the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral, just to our left, the strip area referred to as the strip, number of small businesses, Ken's Barbecue, and you name it, you can get it all there. Number of adults mixing in with the children, number of teachers, members of the education department as well coming out. And on Friday we'll be here at the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral for the official funeral ceremony for the late former Chief Minister, the Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes. So students from the smallest to some of the older students in the higher forms are out here, very respectfully lined up. And as I said, members of the Education Department of Education as well, Ministry of Education officials out here as well. Nice mix of ordinary citizens too, mixing in with the school children from the Valley Primary School and providing a great spectacle here today. It's live coverage for you. Lloyd's Live, in association with Radio Anguilla, providing live stream, video and audio of the official motorcade for the late Mr. Hughes. So the procession will continue onto the Queen Elizabeth Avenue outside the James Ronald Webster Park and the football stadium, going past the mausoleum that bears the remains of the father of the nation, the late Honorable James Ronald Webster. And the students from Campus B will be coming down and lining the road next to the University Center, UWI offshore campus. They'll be lining there as well. So some workers from the water lab, Department of Education out here as well as we come to the roundabout here. And we move now on to the Queen Elizabeth Avenue. Number of folks have come out here. We are seeing the students from Campus B, seeing one or two of the teachers as well out here with the students in their green and brown, light brown uniforms. Many of them with flags, as we've seen all morning, involving students from the schools. The hearse is just taking its time, going very slowly through this area. Breeze has certainly picked up. Seeing some students away in the distance on the opposite side of the street here. Most of them are populated the eastern side of this Queen Elizabeth Avenue, but we're seeing some away in the distance, close to the bikers, coming down on the left side, our left, going up. And on our right is the James Ronald Webster Park, where we have our big cricket matches and football matches, athletic competitions are all held there. And so many things have been held in the park here. Certainly plans for some repair work, some new additions, new facilities, but that's down the road here. So we go past the James Ronald Webster Park, and we're coming up towards the Raymond Gishad Football Center, the home of football in Anguilla. Its own stadium, own facility, floodlit facility, home of football here in Anguilla. All the big matches, major competitions are staged in the football center. Breeze is still with us. As the people of Anguilla, young and old, pay their respects to the late former Chief Minister, the man who served 3 times as Chief Minister in a political career in the Anguilla House of Assembly that started back in 1976 and ended in 2015. Students from Campus A, Campus B are coming out here. This is quite a stretch of students just outside the football stadium. And the majority of the students on the eastern side. That's to our right, going up along Queen Elizabeth Avenue, some on the left. Flags quite visible. Boys and girls, many of them with their school bags on their backs, flags in hand, masks on for most of them. 1 or 2 without their mask, but the majority mixed in with the students are teachers from the high school, the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School. Some folks from the football stadium. Recognize 1 or 2 officials from the Football Association coming out onto their balcony and looking out. So we are heading up now towards the UWI Center, University of the West Indies campus, offshore campus, one of the main centers here for representing the interests of the University of the West Indies here. Again, we see more and more students from the high school, Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School. And immediately following this, we'll be going towards Pastor Philip Gums's church. Then we'll see some students from the Aurelia Kelly Primary School. Yeah. Just feeling a bit more of the sunshine now. The rays are getting to bearing down on us here now. We still have the breeze though, so it's not one of those days that you feel really stifled. At least not yet. But we're hoping the breeze will continue throughout our broadcast. Lloyd's Live, in association with Radio Anguilla, bringing you live coverage, videos, streaming, audio of the official motorcade for the late Honorable former Chief Minister of Anguilla, Hubert Benjamin Hughes. As we look away to the right is the building for the football. Then as we look further towards the east, perched on top of a little mound, is the mausoleum for the father of the nation, bearing the remains of the father of the nation, the Honorable James Ronald Webster. Of course, Hubert Hughes and Mr. Webster would have ran together on same political slate, same political parties, had their differences, had their splits. Such is the life of politics. But Mr. Hughes never lost respect for the father of the nation. Never. Always spoke highly and glowingly of the work of the father of the nation, Honorable James Ronald Webster. And so the students still excited, still animated, many of them, on either side of the Queen Elizabeth Avenue. See our camera just panning, getting a good shot of this student. So we're coming up now to the UWI Center at Brown and Creamish Building. We're still seeing more students from Campus B here with us this morning, with their teachers, with their flags, with their masks. Teachers, good to see them out, waving, paying their respects. So we are just outside the University of the West Indies Anguilla campus. Open campus. Yes, UWI Open Campus Anguilla. Still more students, still more teachers, ordinary citizens out here as well, on the lawn of the campus. Just had a quick shot of the brother of late Hubert Hughes, James Freddie Hughes, and his son Rommel Hughes, off to our right in their vehicle P11. Freddie Hughes being driven by his son Rommel Hughes, right at that junction leading up to the Campus B on the western side of the hospital. Some of the nurses are out here, yes. Some of the nurses and hospital staff, security out here are waving, paying their respect. More students and teachers. And so we've moved past the Campus B and the UWI Open Campus Anguilla facility, going towards the Church of God Prophecy, pastored by Philip Gomes, senior pastor there. And we are heading up towards the Aurelia Kelly Primary School. Students from that school will be at the side of the road as well with their teachers. And after we've completed the Aurelia Kelly Primary School, the motorcade will continue. We'll make a left turn onto the Stony Ground Main Road through Little Dix, Badcocks, Deep Waters, We'll be making a left at Chalvis Junction through Welch's and up to Island Harbor. Yes, we can pick up from our vantage point here. We are seeing the students of the Aurelia Kelly Primary School in their maroon, light pink uniforms, boys and girls. Wonderful shot we are getting here of the new facility, recently rebuilt since Hurricane Irma, the damage caused to that school and many of the other schools. And this is quite a lovely building to our right, which now forms part of the school facility here at Aurelia Kelly. So quite a bit of number of changes have taken place over the last few years since the hurricane. So students lining both sides of the road here. Many of the little ones right up front on our right. More senior students on our left. All with their flags. Majority with face coverings. Singing the national song. Teachers present. As they're singing another song, I Am So Blessed. Singing, I give you thanks. Thanks, thanks, I give you thanks. That is the song they're singing here at the Aurelia Kelly Primary School. Basically telling the former leader, we give you thanks. That is how I'm interpreting that. But using one of the popular hymns as their passing tribute. They're all lined up, the entire area right in front of the school, from the top right up, from the bottom right to the top. And this is such a spectacle. It's so good to see, especially these little ones looking so cute in their uniforms with their flags and their face masks and waving and singing. Lloyd's Live in association with Radio Anguilla, providing you with full coverage of the official motorcade, honoring and respecting the contribution to Anguilla made by the late Honorable former Chief Minister Hubert Benjamin Hughes. All the teachers out with their students, all bearing their flags, waving, singing, I am so blessed. We give you thanks. As we proceed slowly in front of the Aurelia Kelly Primary School, we look at the new buildings that have gone up. Some of the workmen doing some final work coming on the front of the building. And that would be the auditorium. Yes, it is. Right on the eastern end. And coming out and standing up and looking on as well and paying their respects. We are going past the school. Number of areas from members of the public from this area have also come out to the side of the road. We make a left at the stoplight and we'll be going on to the Stony Ground main road. We'll be going through Little Dix, Badcocks, Deep Waters. We'll be making a left at Chalvis Junction through Welch's and then up to Island Harbour. A stop will be made in the vicinity of the St. Andrew's Anglican Church, where students from the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School will be lined up at the roadside with their flags. So we are now onto the stony ground. Main road. Again, we are just behind the hearse, Two Sons Funeral Home. The driver of the hearse is the funeral director, Alistair Richardson. So we've had just a momentary lull. We've just made a stop. Some adjustments been done, no doubt, to the front of the pack with the bikers and the police outriders, police vehicle out front, and we'll restart in just a bit. So far so good. It's been a good day, pleasant day, good sunshine, nice. Some white puffy clouds away in the distance. We continue to get this refreshing breeze as we continue with our live coverage. We hope you're hearing us clearly. We hope that the video shots are quite good, and especially for folks overseas and those of you in the offices at home who are not able to come out and line the roads, line the streets, that you're able to feel part and parcel of this auspicious occasion. The official motorcade through the entire length and breadth of Anguilla. Started at Two Sons Funeral Home, headed out into the Blowing Point area, Spanish Town, went right to the end of the foot of West End, came back through Long Bay, back up through South Hill, around Sandy Ground, Pond area, through Water Swamp, around the airport, coming through the valley, along the Queen Elizabeth Highway, Queen Elizabeth Avenue, and then now into the Stony Ground area, going through Badcocks, Deep Waters, Chalvis, through Welch's, and then up to Island Harbour. We'll turn around and come along on the eastern side, in the East End area, coming back through the valley area, and finishing up at Two Sons Funeral Home. So we picked up a bit of a pace here now as we go through the Stony Ground area. I've seen some gentleman there with a newspaper holding up with a picture on the front of the former leader. So the pace has picked up a bit as we go through the Stony Ground area, going through as we head up towards Little Dix. As the Anguillians at home and abroad pay their respects to the late former Chief Minister Hubert B. Hughes. So Hughes will be laid to rest on Friday. His final resting place will be the Bethel Methodist Church Cemetery. That's where the body will be interred on Friday afternoon. Friday morning, he will be escorted from the House of Parliament. At about starting at 9, he'll get to the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral at 9:30. And then they'll have a series of tributes in the church, at the church. Then the official ceremony, funeral ceremony, will start at 11 o'clock. Tomorrow, special sitting of Parliament from about 9 or 9:30. Parliamentarians, past and present, will be in the House, invited to the House to make their contributions, pay their respects. They'll be speaking. The body of the late Chief Minister will be lying in state in the House of Parliament. Members of the public will get a chance to go in an orderly manner, orderly fashion, bearing in mind the COVID-19 pandemic regulations and protocols. But they'll get that chance to go in there tomorrow, as the body will be lying in state from tomorrow, Wednesday, until Friday. This afternoon in South Hill from just about 4:30, public tribute session. Members of the public again will be afforded the opportunity to use the microphone in that setting and pay their tribute. So in the Deep Waters area, going on the Deep Waters road here now, as we head towards Welch's next. We've just come out from Little Dix, Badcocks, into Deep Waters we are now. We've picked up a little bit of pace here as we go through this area. And we'll be going through Welch's. We'll make a left at the Chalvis Junction through to Welch's. Next stop will be in the vicinity of the St. Andrew's Anglican Church, where students from the Vivian Vanterpool Primary School will come out with their flags and pay their respects to the former leader as well. From the St. Andrew's area, the motorcade will be going via Mount Fortune, East End. There'll be a stop at the Morris Vanterpool Primary School. Again, the students will pay their respects. And from the Morris Vanterpool Primary School, the motorcade will continue through to Sandy Hill, Long Path, the Farrington, the Quarter, through the traffic light, onto the Albert Lake Drive, through the roundabout in this valley, onto the Coronation Drive, passing the Agriculture Station, Agriculture Department, up to the Old Cottage Hospital, through Crocus Hill, onto the Reverend John, just outside the Reverend John A. Gum's house, making a left into Rock Farm, onto the Reverend Leonard Carty Drive, and then making it back to the funeral home in North Hill. So that's about the route that we'll be following here today. So we continue here, led by the police vehicle and the police motorcycles. Then we have members of the motorbike club here in Anguilla. Not the full lineup of motorcyclists from the club today, but they're represented, as they've often done at many national and state occasions and funerals and other important events. Members of this motorcycle club, they normally turn out. So this has become a feature of the Anguillan landscape, the members of the motorcycle club. Quite a growing and an active club. Very enthusiastic members within that fraternity. And so we make that left here now, coming out from Deep Waters as we head into the Welch's area. Again, we've picked up the pace. Quite a bit is picked up in this area. It's going at quite a click. Police outrider trying to ensure that the traffic is kept clear. So this is a security matter. So we started out just past 9:30 this morning from the Two Sons Funeral Home, and now we are in the Welch's area, heading towards Island Harbor. As the casket bearing the body of the former chief minister in the Two Sons hearse, proceeding along the Welch's main road. This is a tribute and mark of respect to the former leader. Part of the official mourning. Started yesterday. Yesterday, of course, observed as a national holiday, Queen's birthday. On Friday, we'll have a national holiday being observed for the former Chief Minister. And how coincidental that at the start of the week, you have an official holiday for Her Majesty the Queen, as we see members of the family here, the Vanderpool family, coming out and saluting. Brother Joe and the other brothers just coming to the side of the road and saluting as the hearse passed. So as I was saying, on Monday we had an official holiday for the Queen, Her Majesty, her birthday. And then on Friday we'll be having an official holiday for the late former Chief Minister Hubert Hughes. And that coincidence has certainly not escaped the view of many persons, including myself. Quite stark in its coincidence. I'm sure the former leader would have put on a wry smile. So here are some students from the nursery, from the school here at the church, the Baptist church here in the Welches area, one run by Baptist church headed by Reverend Gums, Norrell Gums. So seeing some of the students are here with their flags. First Baptist Church, we're just outside that church. Big open space in front of us. And the tiny tots. Couldn't be more than maybe 4 or 5, maybe even younger, with their teachers. They're here with their flags and they're paying their respects. And that's very important that the young people understand the history, the culture, understand that when a leader of a country passes on, that courtesy is afforded to that individual. Yeah, we had a number of students from Road School and also from Stony Ground. Stony Ground, Road School had a really large contingent, and certainly Stony Ground Primary School too had a very large contingent. So still going through Welches as we head up now towards the St. Andrew's Anglican Church. That's where we'll be making our next stop. And the students from the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School will be coming up there. Lloyd's Live, in association with Radio Anguilla, as we continue to provide coverage of the official motorcade to pay respects to the late former Chief Minister, Honorable Hubert Benjamin Hughes. Mr. Hughes, who passed away on the 7th of May, 2021, in the late afternoon when word got in that he would be in here. So I see we are running a little behind for another engagement, a program that we will be having on our Radio Anguilla immediately following the motorcade. In fact, I'm just getting some little buzzes on my phone from some of the participants, so just to let them know that we would have to push back our time a little later than we had originally planned, but we will have the show on the way as soon as we are through with the motorcade. So just want to let the participants know that we will still be going through with the activity, but just at a slightly later stage. We certainly do apologize for that, but that was unavoidable due to the official start of the motorcade here today. So just hold strain, we'll be getting that underway. So we are here now as we get into Island Harbor in the northeastern part of the island. So we're coming up to the Anglican Church, St. Andrew's Anglican Church. So we'll be looking at it here as we come up. Students from the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School will be out, and as we've seen, the students from all the other schools thus far. Still got the Morris Vanderpool Primary to take care of, and yes, in the distance we can see the students from the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School as we just go past as we come up in front of the St. Andrew's Anglican Church here in Island Harbor. The students are coming into our view just as we get around this corner. St. Andrew's Anglican Church, recently rededicated, looking quite nice. Nice blue windows, white building. And yes, here are the students from the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School in green and white, their uniforms, green and cream. And they're singing the national song. Not as large a delegation as some of the other schools, for example, the Aurelia Kelly Primary or even the Adrian T. Hazel Primary, but they're out with their teachers. And they're here, they're singing, they're standing at attention, looking upright, looking quite engaged and brisk. All wearing their masks. Still in this COVID-19 pandemic. And still no vaccines approved yet for the children, so we've got to be extremely cautious. Teachers with them. Okay. We are outside the St. Andrew's Anglican Church in Island Harbor, and we are with students from the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School. So we're certainly looking good. Stream is holding up quite nicely, thanks to Lloyd Gumps. Yeah, we've been going on 2 hours and 52 minutes. 2 hours and 52 minutes we've been going. Started just around, 9:30, just past 9:30. Yeah, they're about this morning from the Two Sons Funeral Home. And we've been going. So the hearse has come to an almost complete stop in front of the students. And they're now switching to thanks. We give you thanks for all that you've done. And we've heard that from the Stony Ground, Aurelia Kelly Primary School students as well. So the students here at the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School have switched from the national song to thanks, thanks, we give you thanks. White tops. Green skirts, green trousers for the boys. All the teachers out with their flags waving. So after this, the students will be escorted back to their school, certainly coming out from the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School off to our left. And the procession will continue. So the motorcade from here will be proceeding through Mount Fortune in East End. Stop will be made at the Morris Vanderpool Primary School, where the students will be lined up at the roadside with their flags. We are seeing the colorful figure of Percy blowing his conch shell. He's here in Island Harbour, Percy Thomas, paying his respect via the conch shell as the hearse passes by. Percy Thomas was a fervent and ardent supporter of Hubert Hughes. That is without question. He always spoke very highly of Mr. Hughes. He respected him, revered him. And so he's out here, not on his bike today, but at the side of the road in Island Harbour, next to the St. Andrew's Anglican Church with his conch shell, and he blew at least 3 times as a mark of respect as the hearse bearing the body of the late former Chief Minister passed by. So we are coming up to the heart of Island Harbour, on the right next to the wharf. We are going through that area as we continue here with this official motorcade. Behind us, members of the Anguilla government led by Dr. Ellis Webster, all the ministers of government out here today, and other government officials, and of course members of the public forming part of the motorcade. Robert Benjamin Harrigan Jetty will just pass here in Island Harbour, and there's some folks just lining the street here. Mr. Hughes would have stumped all these areas with his political meetings, providing support for respective candidates that his party would have fielded in the area. Long and distinguished political career. Get his point of view, of course. Served as Chief Minister on 3 occasions. First going back to 1994 when he had his first stint. Had a second stint early 2000 and a third stint, his final one, from 2010 to 2015. So he's had 3 stints as leader of government business. And as Chief Minister of Anguilla. One or two of the citizens just saluting. One lady telling our crew, God bless, drive safely. Full marks to our driver, Drakes, who's done a wonderful job. He's maneuvered us very nicely and safely. And so we want to commend Drakes for, as always, doing a great job. Lloyd's Live here with us as well. And at least 2 of his family members are here with us in our Jeep. Lloyd utilizing the sunroof to get some wonderful shots. Some older members of the community coming out now, coming to the side of the road and waving and paying their respects. Some with flags, some without flags, but nonetheless they're coming out. And this is absolutely wonderful to see. Smitty, famous Smitty here in Smitty's bar. He is here in Island Harbor. Smitty's comes up. Smitty once served in the Legislative Council as well, with the late former leader, father of the nation, James One. Webster was instrumental, I understand it, to frequent caller to radio call-in program. Smithy says his piece as well. He's never shy to say what's on his mind. As we come through now, when we're heading on the eastern side, we'll be stopping by the Morris Vanderpool Primary School. So we've gone 2 hours and a bit into this motorcade. We will be going through the eastern Mount Fortune area and going back through the valley area, through the roundabout, going through the old Cottage Hospital, Crocus Hill, and then back to North Hill to the funeral home where we'll conclude. So we're heading around towards the eastern side now, into the eastern Mount Fortune area. It's the official motorcade. Mark of respect, island-wide, for the late Honorable former Chief Minister of Hon Hubert, Benjamin Hughes. Mr. Hughes, who passed away on the 7th of last month. He was 87 years old. He'd been ailing for a bit, been in and out of the local hospital. He was flown to Colombia, had some surgery done there as well. Was recovering at home for a while as well. And then he finally passed on the afternoon of the 7th of May. You're seeing some folks here, older folks coming out. Seen quite a number of older folks who would have known and grew up with Mr. Hughes, his politics, coming out, and we've seen this across the island today during our coverage. Some older folks, some of the diehards, and who knew him well, coming out and paying their respects. Seen a number of younger persons as well, who also have come out and have paid their respects to the former leader. Just to alert listeners to Radio Anguilla that immediately following this broadcast, we'll be having a special program involving many of our local politicians and members of Hughes family will be joining us in studio for a round table, looking at reflecting on the life of the former leader, his life and his politics. Then later on this afternoon, there's a tribute session in his beloved District Number 6 in the South Hill area, just outside his house. From 4:30 till about 7:30, I understand it, where members of the public will be able to get on the microphone and pay their respects via tributes and songs and poems and whatever else they want to do. So that will be afforded. Tomorrow, House of Assembly, parliamentarians past and present will be there from about 9:30. Tomorrow until Friday, the day of the funeral. So members of the public again will be allowed into the parliamentary building under strict COVID-19 regulations and protocols to have a view of the former chief. That's from tomorrow until Friday. Funeral service will start, tributes will start at 9:30 in the morning on Friday, and then the official ceremony will be at 11 o'clock at the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral Anglican Church in the Valley. Preparations and plans have all been taken care of for that the funeral service. The funeral service will be conducted under the auspices of the Methodist Church community here in Anguilla. But they've requested and have been granted permission by Bishop Brooks and members of the Anglican community to use the St. Mary's Pro Cathedral for the ceremony. So well done to Bishop Errol Brooks and members of the Anglican commune for that gracious gesture. Sure, the family of the late Chief Minister would be very much happy that that request has been granted. And that is not unusual. We've seen that, especially in the COVID pandemic, where the Anglican Church in the Valley has been used by other church denominations for funerals of this nature. So we are in the East End as we are getting close to the Morris Vanterpool Primary School. Yes, or the building that houses, because the school was destroyed by the hurricane knockdown and it's now being rebuilt. A nice facility. And here the students, brown and brown, light brown top, brown skirts, boys and girls, they're out here. Teachers are there with them. They are not singing like at least the two other schools we saw. They're certainly holding their flags and they're standing at attention. They're not slouching in any way. They're quite upright with their flags in front of their chests, some out in front of them, but they're looking very proud and they understand the occasion and what it all means. They're seeing the bikers go by, they're seeing the police outright as a police vehicle. Now they're seeing the hearse with the bearing the body of the former leader going past them. This is the Morris Vanterpool Primary School in East End. Hopefully shortly they'll be moving into the brand new school facility just to the back of us. We've just passed it. Really seeing that proudly displayed on the, yes, the first school we're hearing with this very revolutionary song.